Hi, I'm Andy Knapp. I'm the Performing Arts Product Manager over at Wenger. What that basically means is that I oversee the products at the Syracuse site for J.R. Clancy, the Cranston site for Creative Connors, and the Texas Scenic site out in Texas. So with me, I have Pete Svitavsky and Damon Atwood. If you guys can just pop on, say hello, give your
Good
titles.
afternoon, folks.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here.
Sweet. So they're going to provide some color commentary where needed for this talk. We will be discussing, how to select the perfect voice specifically from our catalog. So looking forward to get things started. One thing we really want to get out of the way is just the announcement that we had on Monday, which was that Texas Scenic Company is now a part of Wenger Corporation. So we're very excited about that. As such, as it is still fairly fresh news, we won't be really digging into their product offering in this talk, but rest assured there will be some streamlining in the near future. All right, so we are going to be talking about hoists. On the bottom, you can see just the slew of package hoists that we offer, we're going to dive right in. So it makes sense to start with what is a hoist anyways, right? So typically in the most simple of fashions, a hoist is something that, it lifts things up and puts things down, right? And it is typically comprises of a frame that holds a motor with a gearbox that is usually coupled to a drum, and then usually there's a brake in there as well. Now, for theatrical applications, we typically put a little bit more in there and have additional hoist features. Specifically, we have limit switches that make it so that the hoist does not run into any end of travel obstructions like a grid or the hoist itself, and it doesn't, land the if it is lifting a batten, that batten on the stage deck and just unspool all the cable. As part of industry standard in design, ANSI E1-6-1, I believe. Pete can correct me if I'm wrong. The part of that standard in which we design hoists requires there to be a secondary brake. More often than not, that is right on the end of the drum, load side brake, and then the primary brake would be in the gearbox, the gear motor itself, rather. Sometimes there's a load cell, usually or sometimes affixed to a torque arm. Really, the load cell is just measuring how much load is on the hoist so that it can be read out on the control system. So very helpful to know, what your capacity of your hoist is and how much is the control system is saying is on it, so you don't exceed it. Usually there's also additional things in place within your control system which would allow for you not to exceed those capacities anyways. So, but very helpful. And then there are, of course, encoders. Encoders, what they do is they count. So in counting revolutions of either the motor or the drum, we are able to, the control system is able to use that information to determine the thing, where in space that thing you're lifting, typically a batten, is. So what we're looking at here is a drum hoist, okay? One of the most basic of hoists. It's what we, started utilizing back in the, 50s. Damon can correct me if I'm wrong there, but what we used to do, in designing for these theatrical systems is just put it, the biggest, depending on what you were lifting, right? Just a big drum and a big motor, and you would lift your battens or what have you. The problem with a drum hoist really is they're big, right? If you're especially if you're spooling all that cable on one layer on the drum. If you notice from the plan view, right, these things would be taking up a lot of space. You wouldn't be able to have, your battens on 8-inch centers, or 6-inch centers, right? And there's a big issue with fleet here, right? Fleet angle is the angle at which the wire rope is spooling off the drum and hitting the lock blocks, right? If we go beyond what we're supposed to there, we're going to deal with more failures and more wear and tear on the equipment, right? So in order to combat this, we started to build what we call a line shaft. So a line shaft hoist is a lot slimmer, right? You can pack them in together, and you're able to utilize this as an option for having a more compact system. The only issue with line shaft hoists is because we're dealing with a lot more components that are spanning, say, your entire batten, it could be a little bit costly. So that brings us into the zero fleet hoist, right? So Powerlift is a zero fleet hoist. We'll be talking about that a little bit. You'll notice this hoist would be located, off stage in the wings typically, and then it would spool the wire rope out to the loft blocks, which are a lot cheaper than drums, right? And which will then turn the cable to lift the batten, right? What makes this zero fleet is the cable spools on the drums in a single layer. The drum itself is moving on a screw. That screw then allows for the cable to pay into the head blocks at the same place, and then it comes out of the head block at a straight line, so you don't have to worry about that issue we saw with the drum hoist, right, where that last lift line is just literally going at a crazy angle at your loft block. Now, another option that we will be talking about a little bit are counterweight assist, right? So probably one of the more accessible and easily retrofitted hoists when you need to have some motorized equipment, right? If you have a counterweight system already, or you're planning to build one, the counterweight assist is a perfect option to get some utility and motorization within your system. So how do I pick which hoist I need, right? Well, let's start with what are you doing in your space right now, right? Are you the type of space that is going to be setting things, setting and forgetting essentially, right? Or are you looking to use your motorization for really cool advanced automation, right? So basically utility versus performance, right? When we think about utility, we're thinking about, electrics or shells. Those things don't really need to go at any fast speeds. There doesn't need to be any timing or precision. It don't really need a complicated control system if that's the case, right? Typically, your motorized hoists are fixed speed, right? So we can easily bring in those battens in, put the thing on it, or tilt the shell and then just bring it right back up and leave it. If you have a main curtain, if you have like some really interesting scenery that you want to go at speed and certain timings, that's when you're going more towards something that is variable speed, right? So, and you may have a mix and match there to allow for a really cool queuing for a show. So what are you doing? What is it really going to be used for? There may be some savings that you could have, especially if you're going for fixed speed models versus variable speed. So really consider that before you go in. Okay, package hoists. That's another thing to consider, right? So we offer a variety of package hoists. What makes a package hoist is that it is a standard build, right? You have these things can be specified, right? It's one hoist that basically can fit a variety of spaces and a variety of needs, right? Versus just going completely custom. Because if you go completely custom, then you end up blowing your budget out of the water with a package hoist, right? We're able to give you most bang for your buck, and you'll understand basically what you're getting, right? Those package hoists usually have the gear motor, starter, and drum all in one integrated unit. I mean, Powerlift is a perfect example right there, front and center. For us, we typically provide it with a wireway, which is basically a very fancy means of just plugging in power and data. I mentioned that these are easy to specify if you know what you're getting, right? That's the whole point. But also, this becomes, as I mentioned, right, without going custom, you're able to be a little bit more economical, and you can have a little bit of minimal customization because every theater is different, so it's got to fit the majority of use cases. So we're going to get started with the lowest level, or rather the most approachable, the easiest to add to an existing counterweight system, and that is a counterweight assist specifically from the Clancy bit of things. We have what's called the power assist, right? This is a chain-driven hoist. It replaces the floor block in a counterweight system, and the chain then replaces the hand line. What's really cool about our specific hoist is that the starter, if you are utilizing a push button version of this hoist, can basically goes right on the locking rail, replacing the rope lock. So it fits in really nice into existing counterweight sets. So it makes it perfect for a retrofit. I say and new construction, but more often than not, you're seeing people that need some hoist utility and in an existing counterweight set. So you'll notice on there, I say 0 to 2,000 pound set capacity. Really, this hoist can lift only about 1,000 pounds out of balance. So what is more often than not, the utilization of this hoist is to throw 1,000 pounds on the arbor, so that when you are putting something on the batten, you can load it up to 2,000 pounds. 25 feet per minute, which is perfect, for some basic utility sets like electrics and shells. Next up, we have our Varian hoist. Varian is interesting because it is a drum hoist, but it's what's called a pylon drum hoist. So the cable piles on itself like a yo-yo, also called a yo-yo. And that allows for a slimmer drum versus the big monstrosities that we were looking at in the slides earlier. This hoist really is nice and small and compact. It's able to get and hang typically in front of house applications where the steel is not very structural. If you're familiar with joists, joists don't like to move sort of left and right. They like to have their full weight to be pulled up from below. So this particular hoist actually comes on an integrated backbone. That integrated backbone then would attach to your joists, and it would prevent that horizontal movement from affecting the steel and doing very bad things. What's really cool about this hoist is that it can really go anywhere on that backbone. So it can spool off the drum from front to back, up to 5 lift lines. So wherever it makes sense to put that hoist, you can put it. So really cool. Typical use of this hoist, as I mentioned, front of house, but usually for a simple lighting, front of house lighting position in a small school would be where you see this the most. Summit. Summit is our newest hoist. You'll notice first off the bat that we have a slow speed model and a high speed model. Okay, we don't have a fixed speed. Both of these models utilize VFDs or variable frequency drives, which allows for soft start and stops. So, for the slow speed model, we don't have to worry about damaging, that your really fancy and inexpensive lighting equipment or shells. So that makes it really nice and easy to use. You'll notice that the slow speed comes in 230 and 480 volts, whereas the high speed model is just 480. So something to consider if you are looking at this hoist. One other great thing to see is that the high-speed model goes a lot faster than what is typically out there. So usually when you're looking at variable speed hoists by our company or competitors, you're seeing them cap out at about 180 feet per minute. At least for packaged hoist applications for this guy, though, we are going at 205 feet per minute, which makes it a lot more useful in a performance venue, especially for a main curtain. Easy to install. If you've been a part of our tech talks in the past, we've done a couple on this hoist. It's really cool. It comes with that backbone on top. You can install that first, then you can install basically what we call the top hat. That's where the hoist is going to go, and then you can utilize the backbone, steel backbone, to lift up the hoist into place. So if you are utilizing joists, or if you have steel that's very close to your roof, right, and you can't really get your span sets to get your chain motors in place, you can actually utilize this backbone as your strong point, which is nice. You're also able to have an aluminum extrusion come with this hoist. So if you are dealing with joists, hey, we've got that option as well, but you don't need it. So if you don't need it, save the money and have the hoist without. So the slow speed model, ideal for utility sets, as we mentioned, electrics and shells. High speed model, that's the performance one, and would be better used for that one. This hoist is typically would be more useful in a high school or college setting, but really you could use it anywhere. All right, power lift, our bread and butter. So this hoist has been around forever. In fact, if I miss anything about this hoist, Pete can chime in and say it, because Pete's been at the forefront of this hoist since we brought it to market. We are on our sixth iteration of this hoist. It is a zero fleet design, as we mentioned. That single layer of cables went up to the head block, right? There are various different voltage options. You're able for this one to drop a lift line off the front and back, which is very useful. If you have a tight space, right, a theater that doesn't have a lot of wing space, that makes it really useful, because then the hoist can actually be right over the batten. So you don't have to have that extra wing space to just shove it off to the side in order to hang your batten. We got speeds for our variable speed version of this hoist. You can go up to 180 feet per minute. As I mentioned, some it goes a little bit faster. And capacities, which is great, up to 2,500 pounds, which is great, because as a cost-effective package hoist, right? This would be the way to go, especially for some heavy shells or electrics, right? The 2,500 pounds really takes care of a lot that's out there, especially if you are in a performing arts center or in a college, right? To that end, small to medium venues, this guy goes to about 63 feet of travel if it's 7 lines, a little less if it's 8. So that's something to keep in mind for this one, as far as, okay, well, how big is my venue, and will powerlift be the right pick, right? What's also cool about this hoist is that you can mount it in a variety of ways, right? It can be underhung, that's typical for what we see in most applications, right? You got the steel I-beams up there, goes right up to it, all good. Occasionally people like it upright mounted on the grid. We can do that, or you could do a vertical mount on the wall. One other cool thing I'll mention about our 6th iteration of this hoist is that we are utilizing dual motor brakes. So that is common in Europe. We actually took a little bit of that design concept and brought it into the States, which is pretty cool. So we do have a white paper on the use of those and how they are safely enfolded into the design of this hoist. If you are interested, you can check it out on our website. Pete, am I missing anything?
We do have backbone option for this machine as well, right? When we think about trying to fit a hoist into an existing building, then we don't have the luxury or we don't have the luxury of using the kind of steel that we typically see in the loft blocks in a bigger theater. That ability to resist the horizontal tension on the building structure is important, right? And so we do have an option for power lift. We don't necessarily have to attach the individual loft blocks to beams. We can use a backbone that will result in vertical loads on the roof structure exclusively, right? And even modest buildings are usually pretty capable of handling vertical loads. That's what roof framing does. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Definitely, yeah. So as
Also, we have a question here. Let's see. Are
hit
there
me.
integrated lifting lugs on the summit that could be used to raise the hoist to the backbone?
Integrated lifting lugs. There is Summit actually comes with a lifting bracket, so that sort of encompasses the middle of that hoist and allows for it to sink up to that top hat. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question. I mean, I believe it answers the question. If it doesn't,
Okay.
let me know.
Okay, we had another question for the slow speed summit. Is 230 volts correct? Wouldn't 208 be more standard?
Yes, 208 would be more standard. Yep.
Okay. And we also had a question about the Varian hoist. What is the capacity of the Varian hoist?
Oh, right. Varian hoist has a 1,500-pound capacity.
Those were all the questions for now.
All good, all good. So you may have noticed, and I'm glad Pete jumped in there, but Varian, Summit, and Powerlift all have backbone if you need it. Varian has to have it, but Summit and Powerlift have it if you need it. All right, Titan. So Titan is another zero fleet hoist that we offer. It's capable of more capacity and faster speeds than Powerlift. As such, it's a high performance precision hoist. So and it ends up being more costly in that regard. So it can do speeds up to, I believe, 650 feet. Capacity is up to 3,300 feet. There are actually a variety of models of this, and you can get about 90 feet of travel out of this. So this is great for, a large performing arts center, for a large opera house. If you want your curtain to come screaming in, this is the hoist for you. And if you have, for whatever reason, one of those spaces that has, shells that are above that 2,500-pound capacity that Powerlift can handle, and you need to go a little bit heavier, then Titan is the way to go. One thing to point out, Titan does not come with an integrated backbone, so just something you should consider. But at the capacities and speeds that it's running at, I would hope that you would have adequate steel to mount this particular hoist. Power line.
Yep.
So we did talk a bit about, or rather, I pointed out what a line shaft hoist is essentially, right? Technically, power line is our packaged hoist of a line shaft, but it does come in thousands of configurations, right? As many drums as you need, at different size drums, with different reevings of cables from 1/4 inch to 3/16. This kind of hoist is really ideal for another option for when your steel is not sufficient for horizontal loads, but also if you have a weird construction in your space, maybe most theaters wouldn't experience this, but maybe if you have a found space or something like that, and you had steel that was at multiple levels, Maybe they're not all sitting at the same height off of the floor. A power line or line shaft hoist might be the way to go there, because the drive shafts can then go and meet the drums and allow for a hoist that would be utilized in that kind of space. So ideal for acoustic shells and fire curtains. Again, this is a customizable packaged hoist.
Andy, there's a
And
question from
sure, hit me.
Guido Marteau has a question. It's about the power lift.
Sure.
You still, let's see, do you still have slack cable detection on the power lift?
So Powerlift doesn't have slack line. It has a Pete, I'm blanking here. The switch.
So Powerlift has load sensing, so which is in a certain sense, you're looking for a change in line tension. It would be gross line tension, right? The load on the drum is being sensed rather than the load on individual lines. You talk about slack line, that's load sensing takes you a long way. We haven't really gotten into cross groove on it so much. It does have dedicated rollers on it that will help manage slack lines, and they've proven to be pretty effective at that. So I think that's the way I would handle it. If I was looking for a slack line detection, or I would specify the load sensing option. Does that answer the question?
That is definitely one way, yeah, to deal with that. The question was whether or not it still has, but to my clarification was there is a fleet switch. Is now that I remembered as Pete was talking, that isn't necessarily a means in which to allow for slackline detection, right? It's all that really does is there's in one of the lift lines, I believe it's the first, I could be wrong, but it's at the part of the drum that's closest to the motor. There's a little switch in there that for when the wire rope spools off the drum and goes into the head block. So really what that is for is if for whatever reason the drums stopped moving along the screw and started to not go straight up into the head block, and it has this opportunity to basically hit that fleet switch and stop motion. I believe that's the right application of that switch, right, Pete?
Kind of.
Kind of.
It really has to do. So we try to anticipate failure modes. The power lift, the limit switches are activated by a cam that's attached to the translating drum. And so if the drum were for some reason to stop translating, that would disable both normal and over travel limit switches. So we would consider that to be a critical failure. Therefore, there's redundancy built in to protect that, right? So if for some reason the fleet mechanism were malfunction, then the fleet switch would be activated. The machine would stop until the fault was cleared.
Thank you for that, sir.
And Andy, if I could add in one thing about the slack line. Over the years, folks, there's been a lot of people that's asked for different types of slack line detection, and because battens are never loaded evenly and the cables see different loads on them, you could get false trips with some of the different designs that people had been playing around out there with. So at least I believe our experience has been that load sensing that's looking at the sum of the mass of the entire weight that's on the batten. If that changes, that means that there is a problem, and then the hoist would go into a stop mode. So individual slack line detection, while it sounds pretty nifty out there, can be problematic, and that's one reason we like to try to make these hoists as repeatable and reliable as possible. So I just want to throw that out there, Andy.
Good point. Thanks, Damon. I will say, since we're on the topic, right, that if you are looking for a hoist to have that within our package hoist selections, typically Powerline has that as an option. So for line shafts that we produce, if that needs to be specified, it could be there. Also, Titan has the opportunity for that as well. All right, getting back to it, scoreboard hoists. So we make scoreboard hoists, and those are very high capacity hoists that lift up to, tens of thousands of pounds. They move very slowly, and there are just an unlimited means in which to make these. So not really a package hoist, more custom to lifting the payload, right? As whatever is specified. So we do have several versions of this, self-climbing or fixed-based, and we have provided them for, a scoreboard in high school as well as in large sports arenas. So just a capability of ours that we can do if it tickles your fancy. Touched on Powerline being a good hoist for fire curtains. We also have traction drives, which is what the hoist I have pictured there. We also have what's called a 501P, which is a little hoist in a box, essentially. And we have the option also of powered head blocks. All of these hoists are actually great for lifting fire curtains, right? So when we talk about needing something like this, if you have a new construction and that requires a fire curtain, we've got you covered. We've got hoists that meet the standards out there, NFPA 80 as well as ANSI E 1.22. And if you have an old fire curtain that would need some renovation and would like to be motorized, we've got you covered there too. More often than not, 501P is actually the way to go. So we can more easily motorize something that is not currently motorized and doesn't meet the standard. So I'm going to touch in a little bit about some hoists that we offer from our Cranston site, the Creative Connors folks. There are some hoists that they offer. Again, hoists are for picking things up, putting them down. So when you talk about a winch, usually what that means is a machine that is pushing and pulling. We can get into semantics, but that's usually the case. So for the Creative Connors offerings, I will rather be talking about hoists specifically, though they do offer a variety of winches, like deck winches, like the push stick. But we're going to start with the Spotline. There's actually, I've only put three versions that I thought would be good to talk about today. There is a fourth version that if you're interested in looking at it on the website, you can. There's a Spotline Acro that is specific to performer flying. The machine allows for that and is designed for that, but it is important to say if you are going to fly a performer, you need to make sure that you are trained by a professional and that you have the appropriate control system that would allow for the safety of that flight. All right, Spotline. We're on our second version of this particular hoist. It's called Spotline because it's a spot. It essentially does create a spotline, a single pick point hoist, or if you wanted to put two lift lines on this, or if you wanted to put a bunch of these on one specific, like batten, or you can do that as well. So starting at the main deal Spotline version 2, that guy it hits at a 750-pound capacity with a 1/4-inch cable. The travel can go about 100 feet and at 36 per second. And what's really cool about this hoist and the Spotline Mini is that you can overclock the drive. So what Gareth Connors calls turbo mode, you can actually, at cutting half the capacity, you can double the speed, which is actually really cool. And something that we will be looking into at some point with our hoist as well. Spotline Mini is going to be a little bit less capacity, 250-pound capacity with 1/8-inch cable. This is for if you have smaller places you want to put a pick point hoist, right? And if you have a a tricky grid and it's hard to move something that might be as heavy as the Spotline, then you can move the Spotline Mini a little bit easier, right? So also going at 36 inches per second, right? You got a little bit more travel because of the groove of that drum, right, with the 1/8 inch cable. And then we also make the Spotline Practical, which is really cool. If you want a hoist that has an integrated lift line that has data and power as well, it's great for chandeliers and lighting practicals, that you may want to, fly for an interesting effect. Another hoist that the Cranston team makes is a smart chain hoist. So for venues that are more arena based or for tours, this may be more of a favored option for that kind of use, because you're now you can just throw a span set on this on a chain hoist and put it on the right type of steel and move things around a little bit easier than maybe say a Spotline hoist if you don't have a grid, right? So what's cool about these things is they can move at variable speeds. We actually work with CM and their motors and have a 1/2 and 1 ton and actually a 2 ton option as well. You can go 100 feet per minute or 50 feet per minute respectively. 80 feet and 60 feet are standard chain lengths for 1/2 ton and 1 ton, but really we can accommodate up to 200 feet. The DC brake makes this a quieter chain hoist, and because we are drive driven, you don't get that annoying stop start that you would usually anticipate when using a chain hoist when you hit go. So you could, what's also cool about these guys is you can hang them in place, use them for the load, and then also use them for the show, right? So very, very easy to move around and use. There's dual encoders on this, so you can hit position and you can go at specific speeds. So it really just puts performance in a product that is not used to seeing that, right, in any specific way. So pretty cool product. And then, of course, we offer outside of package choice pretty much anything that you need, right? Specify it and ask for it, and we'll try to figure out how to make it. So putting own personal photo and plug over there, I'm standing next to a dual gear motor line shaft that is lifting up a very, very heavy LED wall over at our friends at Sight and Sound. In the center there, that was actually a really cool project where the chandelier was actually made up of different little tubes of filaments that would send the light in through, and each and every one of those rings could actually lift it at different times so that it could make that sort of teardrop chandelier look, or it could flatten, or it could do a lot of different things. So that was really cool. Damon, Pete, any custom hoists that you guys want to mention, or any favorites that you got in the back of your mind that you may want to bring up, or any capabilities that you're really jazzed about that we've done in the past?
I'll let Pete go first because he's had a lot more experience, but I have one.
Go ahead, Damon. And I got a couple general comments to make after that.
We have a project that we did in Carmel, Indiana, called the Palladium, I believe it is, and it had a front of house hoist, and I believe it had a 32,000 pound capacity on it, and it was just a remarkable the way that the hoist was basically taken apart and taken up into the attic and then reassembled. And so there's pretty much, I mean, if you can think it up and you've got the wallet for it, we can do it. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, actually, Cardinals on the right here. That's the lower right photograph.
Yeah,
I figured. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I didn't recognize that. You're right.
I build a little bit more on what Damon said, which is that as a specifier, if you're trying to put automation in your space, it's fine. You can the way the market has changed in the last 15, 20 years. We've gone from just about exclusively bespoke, right, which is you decide what you want and then we build it, to these packaged hoist offerings, where, our philosophy for the packaged hoist is we try to anticipate, 80% is the number we throw around, 80% of the applications, and then package it. And then by manufacturing at scale, we can take the cost of those features and drop them down and make them affordable for most budgets. Bespoke, we can do anything you want, and those are wonderful projects. I really like working on those. But when it comes to bang for the buck, the packaged hoist systems are the way to go for most spaces. And a lot of times it's a combination, right? So we can do most of what needs to be done in the space with out of the catalog, and then we fill in the gaps, right, with something that comes out of the engineering shop, and that's a cost-effective way to build a big system. So,
Well said. To that end, I've got a bit of an eye chart for you. If you can't read it, that's okay because you can find this on our website. But so if you wanted to get some of the high level pieces and parts of what each and every package hoist can do, we have this really nifty hoist comparison chart, right? So you get a nice understanding of the usage, what different models and capacities and speeds we have, what is the travel, number of lift lines, all the things you would need to know to make a really good a selection. And if you're really not sure, I mean, we're just a phone call away just to step you through, hey, what is it you're trying to do, so that we can actually hook you up with the right choice. I've also slung together a one for Creative Commons as well, a little easier to read, right? So you get a sense of, hey, where do each of the spotline hoists land, and also the smart chain hoist. So I'll leave it up for just a little bit. This is a good opportunity in time for anybody who has any questions. I know it was very high level and a little bit, didn't really dig into the really nitty gritty details of each hoist, but really wanted to get a sense of what they can do, where they're best used, and how we can help you. And to Pete's point, right, it's we do try to take care of 80% of the use cases with the package hoist, but if you find that the hoists that we provide aren't quite doing what you need, we are happy to make a custom solution to fit whatever makes sense for your space and application. Any questions?
Andy, before we turn over to the crowd, I just jotted a couple notes during the presentation, and I want to put a couple of conversation starters out there for the folks who are going to ask questions. Talked a little bit about power and voltages. So when we're designing the control systems for these automation networks, high voltage, the higher we will take, and we like to take the highest voltage you have available in the building. Remember, power is voltage and current, right? So if we raise the voltage, we lower the current, makes the wires smaller and makes your installation more economical. So oftentimes, for bigger systems, it actually becomes economical to consider a transformer, or bringing the higher voltage over to the space from other places into the building, to keep the wiring modest. That's one good point. All of our machines are 3-phase. That's an important distinction, right? If you're designing, we don't do 120 volt machines. The Clancy machines are not 120 volt. And then so that's something to think about. Performer flying, we touched on it briefly. I would just make the point that performer flying, the distinction between a machine that can fly people and a machine that flies a piece of scenery, the distinctions are pretty small. In fact, the ANSI standard for performer flying, which is 1.43, really points back to the general 161, which is the generic overhead rigging. The differences are in rescue plans and operational, right? So the big thing about performer flying, without going down that rabbit hole, is what happens if, right? So it's about managing the risk to people, right? We don't care if a piece of scenery gets stuck in the air. We have a big problem if we get a person stuck in the air for more than a few minutes, right? So that's performer flying in a nutshell. But there are many machines that are suitable for performer flying, and if you were to walk up to them, you would have a hard time telling the difference between that and the one that's designed to lift weights. I will put in I try and work this into every presentation. When designing spaces and thinking about where you're going to put your machinery, I'm going to borrow a turn of phrase from beloved Duncan McKenzie. I'm going to say it is not a puppy for Christmas, it is a dog for life, right? Which means that when you install a piece of machinery into your building, you need to remember it will need to be maintained. You need to be able to get to it to maintain it. And that could be challenging, particularly in modest spaces, right? We talk about putting power lifts up over the top of the battens, which is wonderful for facilities with no wing space. And, you know, that actually makes them a little harder to get to, right? If there's no gallery, if there's no grid, you know, we know those applications are out there. Many, if not the majority, right, are not professional theaters. But really, a responsible design and a responsible specification considers the fact that it needs to be maintained over the life of the equipment. And oftentimes, if you look at the payback of designing a big building, adding a catwalk up front, although unsavory at the time of when they're considering construction cost, pay for itself pretty quick over the life of the product. Something to keep in mind. So I'll step off my soapbox and let the crowd respond with any questions that they have.
Yes, and I'll tag on that, you know, as part of that maintenance plan, right? There is an ANSI standard. You probably know it, Pete, off the top of your head, but for inspection, and your motorized inspection should happen once a year.
Annually, that's correct. Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, we
Sorry.
do have some questions here. So I'm gonna go back and take these questions in order. Okay, somebody asked, have the Weston brakes been retired on the power lift and replaced with the second gear motor brake?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll field that one. That's a great question.
Yeah, I was going to say that's all you, Pete.
There are now, let's see, 1, 2, 3. We're on iteration 4 of the power transmission for power lift. We continue to support all 4, which is to say that we service them and we can take care of them for you. We've gone from load side brakes. We've gone from the Weston brake, which is a passive load side brake, to a large pancake style electric brake on the load side, and then we've gone to 2 electric brakes on the high speed side of the reducer, with a variation in gearing. And then looks like I'll reveal a little sneak peek for P7, which is what we call our development name for the newest version. We'll probably be going back to an electric load side brake. So the answer is it been retired? We no longer manufacture it. We no longer ship it if you order PowerLift, but we still support them.
All right.
Great.
Will Brant. Go ahead.
Just as an engineer, I will just say that they were cool. They were fussy. They were so they had their charms, but they're no longer manufactured.
And if you do have a power lift with a Weston brake, and you would like it to be an electric brake, we do offer that service to change that.
We can upgrade, yes.
We can upgrade.
All right. Will Brant asks, what is the advantage of PowerLift Titan versus Summit Varian pylon wire ropes in lieu of grooved drums?
I will. Great question. A couple of differences we got going on here between those products. Titan is distinguished by its individual line load capacity, right? Titan is a 1/4-inch rope machine. And whereas most of the other package toys are pretty much cut off at 500 pounds per individual line, right? 3/16 rope. The pylon versus the single layer drum, they say everything in design is a trade-off, right? So pylons do a great job eliminating fleet angle problems, right? They simplify the installation quite a bit. They don't position as well as a single layer drum. If you need to be able to put the load within a 1/16 of an inch, and land a flat nicely onto the floor, all, both corners at the same time, and not have the lines go slack or have it hanging an inch off the floor, then you pretty much want a single layer drum, not a pile-on.
Well, and it needs to be pointed out, the Summit is not a pile-on. It is a multi-layer drum. So when you think of a pile-on like a yo-yo drum, the Summit is not that drum like on the variant. So the Summit, basically, the cable will go across 3 to 4 wraps, then it jumps up and runs back across itself 3 or 4 wraps. And that does help us keep the batten more level than a yo-yo or a pile-on type drum, just to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Joshua Barnhill is asking, can the smart chain hoist do dynamic movement profiling, such as start at X speed, go for X time, then slow down to X speed and go for X time, et cetera, et cetera?
It can. That's an easy question. That's an easy answer. It can.
Okay.
I jotted another note about variable speed chain hoist that we just kind of glazed over, but one of the classic problems with chain hoists was multiple machines on the same load, right? So if you go back to the rock and roll days, right, with inverted CM chain motors, the heaviest picks on, if you put a truss with 6 chain motors on it, the heaviest picks, the heaviest line loads will move the slowest, because that's the physics of an AC motor. The vector control, right, the VFD driven chain motors don't have that problem, right? So the load distribution does not change, for that reason anyways, does not change over the length of travel for chain motors that use VFDs as opposed to chain motors that run across the line with an AC motor. So definite improvement in that area. DC brakes, right? So they don't make the same noise that the old ones used to use. The new chain motors are pretty nifty.
Absolutely.
Okay, we got another question. Somebody had their hand up, Evan Heatley. If you can put your question in chat, I'll be glad to answer that. But until he does that, here's this question. Are there Wenger J.R. Clancy cable management systems that can be included with package hoist?
Yeah.
Package hoist.
So we offer pantograph. Pantograph is basically a large metal accordion that will fold up as the batten goes up. It will fold up, and as the batten goes down, it will expand. And typically, cable will go down, up or down on that. In utilizing that version of cable management, you want to consider the weight of that device on your batten. We also work with Gleason and utilize cable reels. We also offer cable cradles if you wanted to have just a cable swag to go to your electric or raceway.
Do you change the head block when installing power assist hoists?
Okay, so that's a good question, honestly. So for retrofits, we have utilized basically a sleeved cable. It's got the wire rope portion of the so stepping back, and Pete, you can feel free to chime in. The power assist is chain driven, but it also utilizes wire rope, right? And that is what goes over essentially the handline groove within the head block, right? That cable is shielded. The shield of that cable allows it to be 3/4 inch, which is typical of most handlines. That shielded cable is becoming very difficult to source. So we prefer in new installations to avoid it, and we'll have that portion of the shiv be grooved accordingly for the unshielded cable. I said that right, Pete?
I'll offer my perspective from the engineering side of things. So A couple of things. The power assist was originally designed for retrofit. Reason that we encourage people to examine the head block in a retrofit condition is even though our drive line may be the same diameter as the rope, there was a point in rigging manufacturing when the groove in the operating line groove, the hand line groove, was not the same diameter as the wire rope grooves. And, you know, in the days of hemp and when you're moving things by hand, and it was not a big problem. If and without getting too far into the boring, you know, the geometry of it all. But anyways, that wasn't a problem. So some of those blocks are still out there, right? And so we encourage people when they're considering a power assist for a retrofit to examine the head block, and we can help you do that and determine whether or not it's suitable for automation or not. You know, it really speaks to one of the basic differences between manual and automatic rigging. When there's a problem, when there's an inefficiency, right? Something's binding up, which is what that would do. And there's an operator, somebody will say, huh, that doesn't feel right, and maybe we ought to fix that. Big, powerful electric motors, unless they have sufficient sophistication built into them to look for errors like that, will just keep powering through, and then you might end up doing something to something that you don't want to, right? So that's the hazard. That's why we encourage people to look at their head blocks. Doesn't come up very often. And further to Andy's point, so when we designed Power Assist, we anticipated that it would be used for retrofits, and indeed it has been many times. What we are seeing now is it's becoming a complement to new counterweight rigging systems. And so we found that there's quite a bit of economy to be had by not using a 3/4 inch diameter drive line right over the head block. We'll just use a wire rope over the drive line, the same as the wire ropes that are lifting the batten. That simplifies the manufacturing because, as you pointed out, we would take a 3/8 inch wire rope and then extrude a polymer jacket over it to make it 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, it was cool, but it was expensive, and you know we have to stock it and things like that. We can just work with standard wire rope. Everybody saves money, and that's what you can do in new installations. So that's what I would say about that. So if you do have a head block and you're not sure if it's suitable for automation or not for a power assist, please reach out. We can help you make that decision.
Josh Barnhill has a follow-up question regarding cable management. Has there been any thought to engineer a better solution than pantographs?
Oh yeah. It's the simplest things which are the biggest pains in the neck. Yes. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other products in the works. You'd have to ask Andy about that. We've looked at a lot of different ways to do it over the years, and none of them are particularly attractive. But we have solutions. The pantographs often limited by height. There are we do for really long throw scoreboards, for instance. A lot of times it's a cable tub, right? It's just an SO cord that's installed in such a way that it winds itself correctly into a drum, which involves a little bit more skill on the installation end, but is reliable and very practical for big installations and for long, tall installations, right? A lot of travel. Cable reels, boy, talk about a dog for life. Cable reels, if I had $1 for every service call we got on a cable reel, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now. They're wonderful, right? They can do things that the other systems, they're very convenient, right? They're very compact. Cable reels are needy. They are maintenance intensive. That's our experience. And so, yeah, good question.
And I would jump in and say that passive cable reels are better in terms of that maintenance than one that is motorized, right? And if you are considering a motorized cable reel, you need to also consider what it is trying to keep up with, right? If it's and that those speeds are aligned, right?
You can do all that, but
All right, we got one last question here. What type of self-climbing hoist does Wenger J.R. Clancy offer?
Yes. So I did bring up self climbers during about the scoreboard hoist, right? So depending on the spec for that, there maybe that might be the offering for that particular thing. But outside of scoreboard hoists, right? We do have a self climber that is relatively standard for a lot of our designs that we say are custom, right? Pete can speak to this, of course, that we do have sort of a standard approach to it. And that's really how we handle things like line shafts, for instance. Though they may all be different, the approach is the same, right? And that would be similar to our self climber, right? So typically for that one, and our newly acquired friends over at Texas Scenic also have a self climber, but typical it would be that the gear motor would live within a truss structure, and that it would be all of the moving components would be within a truss structure, and those are great hoists that I probably could have put a little bit more information on them for this first particular talk, but they're great, especially if you don't have really good access to the roof steel. So front of house typically. Pete, any additionals that you want to say on that?
I always thought self climbers they're an interesting value proposition. Self climbers, we look at things in terms of the weight of the machine versus the weight of what they lift, right? I always like a drum hoist will lift quite a bit more than it weighs, right? Regardless of its scale. The lower capacity self climbers, right? 2,000 pound, the front of house stuff can be challenging to keep to the existing design standards, and then keep the self weight of the machine under the weight that it lifts. Oftentimes these products they weigh more than they lift, right? So just pay attention to whether you're looking at a gross capacity of the machine or whether you're looking at the net capacity of the equipment that can be lifted with it. They definitely have their place, right? There's another machine that puts no lateral loading on the building structure, and that leaves them particularly well suited to front of house and things like that, where there's tends to be more bar joists and things like that. And so we've done our share of them over the years. We've done all sorts of self climbers, anything from the front of house trusses to scoreboards. But we really haven't seen the volume that other products have.
One thing I'd like to chime in there on, Andy, about self climbers. In another multiverse, I used to sell a lot of self climbers, and there's a lot of I don't want to call it marketing hype, but a lot of people think that, oh, I can bring it down and maintain the motor on the ground and all of that. But what we found out over the years is with the hoist sitting up in the air, if lightning hits the building or something fails, now you've got a motor up in the air that you've got to figure out how to get up to, and then you've got to get that gearbox to unwind it and bring it back down to the ground. And self climbers, they sound great. And I think Pete touched on it. There's not a lot of volume that we've seen for them, but I just want to throw that out there that they sound really neat. They sound really slick, but are they really? So I don't want to trash anything, but I just wanted to throw that out there about self climbers.
They have their place.
Yep.
But if you look at dollars per lifted pound, they're more of a problem solver maybe than other products.
Well, that was all the questions that we had there. So
Awesome. Thank you guys for taking a journey with us. Again, very top level, but if you have additional questions or anything that you want to know about our products, you can find out all the information on our website, like that hoist comparison chart. But if you had some more, digging questions, you're welcome to reach out to either myself, Pete, or Damon. So
please stay in
Thank you.
touch. We'd like to hear from you. Yeah.